For nearly 20 years, Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group has been helping families here in the Huntsville area plan for a successful retirement. Chris strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals, creating income in retirement, maximizing your savings, and minimizing taxes. Chris has the strategies you need to help you sustain a successful retirement. Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Luann Fulmer. Today you'll learn cutting-edge financial strategies and tips on learning income for life in retirement. Joining me is certified financial planner Chris Wallace of WG Financial Group. He's located right here in Huntsville. Did you know that retirement has 3 distinct stages? Well, today Chris is going to tell us what those stages are, and then later he'll explain what we need to do to plan for them. Chris, it's so great to be back here with you.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you as well, Luann.
All right, so for years we think about retirement as the golden years, right? That's what we've all heard. When we get to retirement, we're going to leave our work days behind and just settle into those golden years. But you say they're actually, it's not just one thing, one phase. You say there's really a different way to look at it.
Absolutely, yeah. So when we just look at life in general. So take, for example, when you were younger, I look at life in 3 phases, basically. So when you were younger, that would be phase 1. You met your spouse, everything's blissful, you're dating, you're just having a great time, you're going wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
You don't really have as much money, but you're pretty spontaneous. You can do pretty much what you want to do. And then the kids are born, and that starts phase 2. And that's still kind of a fun time. The kids are cute, and then you don't sleep as much, and they're crying a lot. And they become expensive, and then they go off to college. And then in phase 3, that's kind of your years where you're empty nesters. The kids are gone at that point. You've saved your money, and now you're kind of redoing phase 1 all over again. So this kind of starts the retirement years, in that phase of life. But inside phase 3, there's 3 phases within phase 3, and that's the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And that's how we have to look at retirement, because it's going to be broken down really into 3 different phases for most people.
Okay, so why don't you walk us through, let's go through each phase, one phase at a time.
Sure.
Okay, so tell us about the go-go years first.
Yeah, so the go-go years, that's the transitional period when you leave the workplace and you go into retirement. And this is a big emotional shift, a psychological shift for a lot of people, where all of a sudden you've been working, you get up, you take a shower, you drink your coffee, you go into the office, and you come home, you say hello to your spouse, and spend a little time together, and you're off to bed. It's like routine, mundane, but that's what you get used to. So when you transition into the go-go years, you almost have to tell yourself, it's okay for me to go and do and spend. Now, these go-go years are going to be from, let's just say, 65 to 75. It's going to last about 1/3 of your retirement. It's the time when you're most healthy. It's the time when you're going to do probably the bulk of your traveling. It's also the time where you're going to spend probably the most money on those sorts of things, because you're going to be a lot more active. You're going to be able to do things with friends. And, this is just that first year when you need to tell yourself it's okay to go out. It's okay to spend a little bit of money.
Yeah, and that's the transition that we always talk about on our show. All our lives we've been saving for retirement. Then all of a sudden you're in retirement and you're pulling money out. So that's kind of scary. Is that something that you have to kind of coach people about? Like, it's okay to spend that money?
Oh, it is, Lou. And I've sat with couples before, but right now, as you're saying that, I'm distinctly remembering one particular couple that I've sat with before. And they had a lot of money. They did really well. They hit all their marks as far as saving for retirement. And when they got there, like I said, it's a transition. Because if you think about it, you're steady pushing money into those retirement plans for 30 or 40 years. So it becomes a habit. It's just a way of life. You get paid. Part of it goes into your 401k. You're saving. Because if you think about it, that's what you were told all your life.
Right.
Save your money.
Yeah.
Save your money. So this particular couple, so they were in retirement, plenty of money to do what they want to do. And when I'm sitting with them, I started talking about Christmas. It was right before Christmas. I said, hey, what are you guys doing for Christmas? And the wife speaks up, and she says, well, we're going to Opryland. And I said, oh, really? I said, that's a great place. Beautiful at Christmas time, lots of things to see. And she said, yeah, but he wants to stay at the Hampton. And I was like, no. You got plenty of money. These are the go-go years. I kind of said to the husband, I said, hey, you can't take the money with you. This is phase 3, the go-go part of your retirement. You need to make those memories with your wife. She wants to stay at the Opryland Hotel. I get it. It costs several $100s a night to stay there. I understand that. But you have the money. It's built into your financial plan. You can't take the money with you. Go build those years with your spouse in the last years of your life together. So they've recently come back into the office, and they're telling me that they're doing more and more trips. I got chills telling you about it right now, just because it's exciting for me. And, doing this job and meeting with people, meeting with families on a weekly basis like I do, it actually encourages me to do a better job with my own finances, right? Yeah. So I see what they're doing and the dreams that they're getting to live. And like this particular couple, they're now doing more because basically he said, you know what? We have the money. That's what he told me in my last meeting. We have the money. We should go do it. I'm not as concerned about making the big returns anymore. I'm more concerned with being able to make memories with my spouse. And that was just, for me, that was like the icing on the cake for me. It was a joy for me to hear. It was just, like I said, music to my ears, if you will.
I love that. So you were kind of a marriage counselor there, right?
Yeah, in a sense, Lou. And I think a lot of people, when you think about financial planning in general, I think people look at financial planners as, oh, they're going to manage my money. No, I'm sorry to inform you that we'll manage a lot more than just your money, and some of that is the emotional side of things. When you think about money, just in yourself and the way that you and your spouse do it, money is very emotional to a lot of people. It really is. It'll bring up all kinds of emotions. So as you transition into those go-go years, after you've been pushing money in, it's a weird feeling to take money out. It's incredibly weird for a lot of people. Matter of fact, it's awkward. I've had people want to take more out of their IRA just so they can put it back in their savings account. Now, from a tax perspective, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
So we're going to pull an extra, say, $1,000 a year. That's $12,000 a year that we're going to pay federal and state taxes on, to put it in the bank savings account where they're going to give you a 1099 at the end of the year, and they're going to charge you tax on it. So you're literally going to be double taxed on the money, but that's the habit you develop when you're in your pre-retirement years. Save, save, save. So again, going back to this couple, just to pull money out, it was awkward at first because you're really worried about running out of money. That's the big fear for most people, is running out of money, and you have to get past that. So my job as a financial planner, yes, it's to do a little bit of counseling. I'm not a marriage counselor by no means, but
you could get that license.
Well, you could, but I'm not going to. But when it comes to money, I am a money counselor to a certain degree because I have to teach people that it's okay to spend money. Your plan, the way we built it, it's mathematically okay. It'll make it. You're not going to run out of money. Please enjoy those memories. Enjoy those times with your spouse. Heck, take the kids along too as well, because you know what? If you think about it, your kids, when they're young, think about when you were in your early 20s or so with your spouse early on. You didn't have a lot of money, right? You're just trying to buy the groceries.
Right.
You're like, hey, honey, we can't spend this, we can't spend that. But so grab your kids, take them on vacation with you because they're not at their peak earning potential. Help them make memories.
My parents did that too. We all went on vacation together every summer, so it was so much fun. Yeah. Well, up next, the second stage of retirement and how to prepare for that. But first, here's how you can contact Chris and his team at WG Financial Group. Stay tuned.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Congratulations, you did it! You worked hard and saved for retirement, but now you have questions. Could my taxes increase? How will I cover my expenses? Will my income last? You need a strategy to help make sure your hard-earned money goes the distance in retirement. That's why we're offering this free guide designed to help you determine if your nest egg can withstand the challenges of a 21st century retirement. Longer lives, increasing healthcare costs, and taxes are just a few of the possible risks to your income. Get the guide today and take the first step to help your money last in retirement. Planning on passing your IRA to your children or grandchildren? That could be more of a burden than a blessing due to the recently passed SECURE Act. This legislation eliminates the Stretch IRA. which means now when loved ones inherit an IRA, they could also be inheriting a huge tax bill. Now's the time to sit down with a trusted advisor to find out how you can maximize the legacy you want to leave. Call today to find out how the Secure Act could affect you and your retirement plans. Don't let taxes dictate your legacy. Call now and leave a legacy you feel secure about.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
We're so pleased you joined us today. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm here with Chris Wallace of WG Financial Group. He is a certified financial planner. Now, Chris, earlier you shared with us what you call 3 stages or phases of retirement: the go-go years, the slow-go years, and then the no-go years. And you said that the go-go years usually last from 65 to about 75 years old. Tell us now about the slow-go years.
Yeah, the slow-go years is where you kind of transition from the go-go years, obviously, and you're probably at that point going to do a little bit less traveling. So I'll give you an example. So when my kids were born, we had twins right out of the gate. So you can imagine having 2 kids.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, my wife did an amazing job. She kept them on a schedule. I distinctly have memories of her. We had a Jeep Liberty at the time, so a little smaller SUV. And I literally remember her in the back seat of that Liberty feeding the kids like this.
Oh my goodness.
It's a bottle in each mouth. Yeah, bottle in each mouth. Boom, just like that. And so, that at that point, it's harder to travel, right? When you have small kids, it's tougher to travel.
Right.
So during the go-go years, you're going, the parents are generally going to see them. I know that like on holidays, we didn't travel. We just told people, hey, you can come see us. We can't travel. It's a lot to get 2 kids on the road and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, in those slow-go years, those kids are a little bit older at this point. It's a little bit easier to travel. Nowadays, you just throw the tablet in their laps and, you got your instant electronic babysitter right there.
Even at age 2,
Yeah, nowadays, right, exactly. So in those slow-go years, the kids are coming to see you a little bit more at this point because you're a little bit less mobile. You're not quite immobile. You're just a little bit less mobile. And I think there's an element, your kids are like, hey, you know what, Mom, Dad, we'll come see you now. It just takes a little bit of pressure off of them. At this point, you're probably 75 to 80-ish years old. So you tend to slow down a little bit in the traveling. You're still getting out and around in the community. You're still doing some traveling. You're probably, I would say for most people, I don't know if I'd say for most people, I'd say for some people, you don't do as much like overseas travel. The rigorous long flights and got to walk here, got to walk there. But you're still probably going to do some like local travel. You're definitely
volunteering too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you're still going to be involved in the community, just at a little bit slower of a pace. And that's what the slow-go years kind of look like. The other thing I think you have to worry about in the slow-go years is your health. Because our bodies, they're designed by God, and they break down over time. They start to break down, and that's just the way life is. And you have to start worrying about your healthcare cost at that point. So we've got our health to start worrying about. We've got our healthcare cost, and that would kind of be the slow-go years, just kind of slowing down just a little bit.
So then the question is, when should we start planning for those slow-go years?
Yeah, now, right?
No matter, like age 55, 45?
Yeah, I mean, in the pre-retirement years, you know, because you're watching the show now, and okay, well, Chris says there's, 3 phases of retirement, the go-go, the slow-go, the no-go. And by the way, I didn't make that up, and Luann, a bunch of times on the radio, I've often made fun of it because it sounds really corny, but it's really true. It is. You go-go, you slow-go, you no-go. And it's when you think about it, that's really just the way that it is. So when do you start planning? So you should start planning in your pre-retirement years, because in your pre-retirement years, you're planning for your retirement. And I'm sitting here telling you today that you're going to have higher healthcare costs as you age. Your spending in the go-go years is going to be a lot higher than it is in the slow-go, and it's going to be a lot higher than in the no-go. But what tends to happen is while you're like spending for fun and things like that tend to drop off, your healthcare costs actually go up. And there's been a lot of studies on this. This is not something that I've just come up with on my own. It's all the studying that I've done. And essentially what'll happen in that slow-go years, you'll start to tip up a little bit. So you want to make sure that you have adequate health insurance. So I think your health insurance, especially when you retire, it's a huge decision because that's going to impact how you handle some of the slow-go and the no-go years. And you have to also think about long-term care. There's a lot of families out there today that are watching this show that are currently dealing with, or they have dealt with, a long-term care type of situation with one of their parents. So having insurance, I think early on in life, it's a lot cheaper to purchase that in your latter 40s, early 50s versus let's say 75, say that's when the slow go years start.
Yes.
To go out and try to buy long-term care at that point, it's almost unaffordable, and it doesn't make sense for a lot of families. So that's why I say now, when do you start planning? You plan now. You
Right.
start thinking about those things now because that's part of retirement.
Yeah, and there are different ways we can pay for health care too, not just pulling it out of our retirement assets, but also a lot of options for that you should start looking at 60 or even earlier, right?
No, you should, absolutely, especially when we talk about long-term care. There's different types of long-term care policies out there today, and a lot of people are, the first thing that they're going to say is it's expensive.
Yeah.
And that's what I would tell you about my car insurance. I would, but
Right.
at the end of the day, I've got to have it because if I have an accident, I've got to, pay
We're
for someone else.
required to have it.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And it'd be really funny to do some sort of a study here, but I bet you if auto insurance wasn't required, that many people wouldn't carry it just because they're willing to take the risk
Right.
really unnecessarily.
Right.
Insurance is there to cover risk. At the end of the day, on all your insurance exams that you're going to take, and I've taken, people out there watching the show maybe studying, insurance in its basic form is transfer of risk. So when we talk about long-term care, there's a risk that 70% of us are going to need some level of care. Now, that doesn't mean that 70% of the people when you go in a restaurant are going to end up in a nursing home.
Right.
But what it does mean is that a spouse is probably going to step in at some point and take care of them. And then that transitions into what we'd call assisted living and then on into skilled facility care.
Right.
So starting to think about the cost of that much earlier, I think, is a smart move for a lot of people because they make some pretty advantageous policies out there for people to take a look at. It's insurance. Again,
Yeah.
you're going to buy insurance
Right.
to cover the risk that you might need it. And, the fact that dementia and Alzheimer's, that's real. Like my grandfather had it. My grandmother had it. Jen's grandmother and grandfather had it. It's just, as we get older, our bodies just start to break down. Unfortunately, we're living longer. Fortunately and unfortunately, right?
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
It
there.
is. It
Yeah.
is. So it's fortunate because your family has you around a lot
Yeah.
longer, but a lot of times your quality of life starts to drop.
Right.
And, I just encourage people when they're, thinking about retirement, you have to look at all of the phases of retirement. You have to look at all of the risk, and you have to look at ways to mitigate those risks. Really like what you're doing now when you're working. You're carrying your term life insurance.
Yeah.
Carrying your disability insurance at work. You're covering those risks right now. Well, when you get into retirement, it's a whole different set of risk factors that you have to look at. And I think you have to start thinking about that in your middle to late 40s, to be honest with you.
Right. We have to plan for the worst, have that plan together, but
Yeah.
then hope for the best.
Yeah, you hope for the best. And
Yeah.
you never want to build, it's funny you mentioned that actually. I've heard
Yeah.
a lot of people say hopium.
Yeah.
You never
Oh,
want to
hopium,
build
yeah.
your plan on hopium, but you do want to hope, you want to plan for the worst and then hope for the best. That way, if the worst starts to happen,
Yeah.
then at least you're covered.
Yeah. Well, still to come, Chris explains the no-go years and how you can get there and what you need to do. But first, here's how you can contact Chris and the team at WG Financial Group. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. Just when you may want to forget your age, Uncle Sam says not so fast. Knowing your age is more important than ever when it comes to taking your required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Legislation just changed the age requirement, and not accounting for that could impact your retirement plan. It could be key to not overpaying on taxes in retirement. So remember, when it comes to RMDs, age is more than just a number. Before your next birthday, call today to secure a strategy for the RMD age change and your retirement.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
We're so pleased you're joining us today. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show, and I'm here with Chris Wallace of WG Financial Group. He is a certified financial planner. Chris, let's talk about this final stage of retirement.
Yeah, the no-go years. This is not the one that people want to talk about.
Not really.
Yeah, it's the tail end of things, if you
Yeah,
will. It's kind of
yeah.
starts around age 85.
Right, okay.
It's one of the probably the best memories I have of my grandparents.
Really?
Yeah, just because they're not moving around, they're not distracted, and you kind of have, time to spend with them and actually
Yes.
sit and talk and sometimes listen to stories. And because I can remember early on, in the go-go years, they were active and moving around, and they, were able to go places and take you
Yeah.
places. But in those no-go years, I have very, very good memories of that. And then also some sad memories, because really that's when things start to really wind down. So I think you have to worry about certain risks that exist, in the no-go years.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. And by the way, I had a really special memory with my grandmother too. My husband and I were getting married, and so I was engaged really all that last year of her life.
Yeah.
And I remember asking her about her engagement. We're talking, gosh, by then 80 some years prior, and so it was a really special time too. I had that
Yeah.
memory too. But so yeah, you mentioned risks during this last phase of retirement.
Yeah, so the risk actually, let's talk about that, because there are still risks, and sometimes there's not as much risk as there is more emotional concern, psychological concern. There's still the fear of running out of money.
Right.
Because you're coming to the tail end of your life. If you think about, if you're watching the show right now and you're in those no-go years, you probably have a lot of money in CDs and very safe places because you're very concerned about running out of money. The other thing that I think is a concern is where you live. Not necessarily that if you have a house or not, but where you live in relationship to your kids, because studies show that usually if you have a daughter, the daughter's going to be the one stepping in and kind of taking care. And so the proximity and where you live in relationship to your kids, I think, is a concern for a lot of parents. If you have out-of-state kids and it's just you, like say here in Huntsville, Alabama, and all your kids live in Kentucky, that's a long way away from family. So I think that's another thing that you have to think about. I think you also have to look at your insurance. You want to make sure that you have the proper insurance, and in some cases it's going to be too late to do anything, but insurance is really, something you need to pay attention to. And then I think the estate planning portion of it is really big. And make no mistake about it, estate planning is important for everybody, even the
Right.
youngest couple. It's incredibly important.
Right,
And
you don't know what's going to happen. We all
Absolutely.
think we're going to live into old age, but we may not.
Right. So even for a young family, it's really important. And I always tell younger families, make sure you see an estate planner to do your legal documents. But when you're in those no-go years, and this is really that last phase of life, I think you have to look at several things. Number one, you want to make sure that your will is updated. And again, just want to make it clear, I'm not an estate attorney, but I'm going to go over a couple things that I feel like you should talk to your attorney about. So making sure your will is up to date and it's the way that you want it, okay? And then I think making sure that you have power of attorney in place, because you're much more likely to have something happen to where someone's going to have to step in, unfortunately, and make decisions on your behalf. So having that trusted individual as your agent for power of attorney. And then your advance directives, those are the end-of-life decisions that nobody wants to think about, but it's incredibly important to make sure that those documents are up to date. The other thing that I think a lot of people tend to often just overlook, that is like your banking accounts. They need to have beneficiaries on file. Don't rely on your will to do it, because remember, and again, I'm not trying to give legal advice here, but your will is going to have to be, it'll be probated, okay? If you have beneficiaries on file at the bank, your IRAs, any investment accounts, those will go directly to the beneficiary. Your beneficiaries on your named beneficiaries on your account will trump the will. And again, this is where you need to have this conversation with your estate attorney, because a lot of people are under the impression that the will is just going to do everything, and that's just not the case in a lot of cases. So reviewing those legal documents is incredibly important.
I got to just step in here real fast.
Sure.
My husband recently added me to several bank accounts because he realized I wasn't on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our 60s, so.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, again, talk to your attorney about this, but I'll give you just another piece of information to take into the attorney is a lot of families, as they age, they feel like it's the right thing to put their children on the account with them, okay? So they're like a joint owner. Well, if that child has an accident and there's a lawsuit filed, their name's on your account. So again, I want you to speak to your attorney about this, because you may want to clean that up. The way to get around that is have your son or daughter as power of attorney, and then that you get around it the legal way instead of trying to do it your way, because a lot of times our way isn't the right way. Even though it feels right to have your kid on the account. It's like,
Sure.
oh, they can get to my account. I know they're not going to
Right.
steal my money,
Right.
but if something happens to me, they have access to the account. Well, guess what? That's what a power of attorney is for. So again, really important piece of the show here. So if you're watching the show, highly encourage you, especially towards the tail end of what we're calling the slow and the no-go years, get in, make an appointment, make sure your legal documents are up to date. It plays a huge role in the end-of-life decisions.
Okay, so all of these phases, which we didn't even really realize until you told us, we thought it was the golden years, but no, we've got the go-go years, then the slow-go years, and then the no-go years. So each phase has a different risk, and everybody needs to have that financial professional that they trust, someone like you, to help them through this situation.
Yeah, and Louie, and I do want to say it is the golden years, right?
It is.
You've worked all your life.
Yeah,
You've
right.
put in the blood, sweat, and
Right.
tears. I worked in manufacturing for
Right.
a number of years. I worked with a lot of people that retired, and to see the look on their face, when they literally go out the door to retirement,
Yeah.
it truly is the golden years. But there are things that you're going to have to look at differently. There are ways that you're going to have to behave a little bit differently when you get into those golden years in order to keep them golden, right? We don't want them to get tarnished in the
Right.
golden years. So
Right.
it's really important that you're working, as you mentioned, with a financial professional. We actually on the radio show we call it the Dream Team. Remember
Yes.
that?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Dream Team.
Right.
We got a CPA or a tax person. We've got our estate attorney. We've got our certified financial planner. We encourage people to make sure that they surround themselves with people that are really good at what they do so that they keep you protected in retirement so that you can enjoy what we've been calling the golden years and keep them golden.
Right, and so many people just think, oh, I can do it by myself. Why do I need somebody? But all these things that you just brought up are things that I think the normal person doesn't know and doesn't understand. And so many risks through each phase of life, in retirement, through each stage in retirement. You got to get some professional guidance on it, or you might miss the boat and end up our worst fear, running out of money in retirement.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story as we wrap up here. I sit with a lot of people, right? From TV, radio, a lot of people come in and see me.
Yes.
I met with a lot of do-it-yourselfers.
Right.
You just mentioned somebody, do it yourself. I can tell you honestly, I've never met with a do-it-yourselfer where I haven't found things that they could do a little bit better.
Yeah, there you go. See, so maybe you shouldn't do it yourself.
That's absolutely
Give Chris
right.
a call, right?
Yep.
So great insights today, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't hesitate to act on any of the information that you heard with Chris today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for a second opinion. Chris would love to help you. Don't wait. Call now. For Chris Wallace and the team of WG Financial Group, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. We hope you have a great day and an even better retirement.
This program was sponsored by WG Financial Group, where your retirement matters.